is one of my favorite stories. It's one of my favorite stories to preach on because I love the spirit that permeates this story, the spirit of God's amazing abundance in Jesus. God's abundance comes to us when we least expect it, in places where we never expect it. It comes in the midst of our ordinary, everyday stuff. It comes also in the midst of profoundly meaningful human celebrations like weddings. It can, however, be hard to talk about this spirit of abundance when there are so many people with so many needs, when the spirit of dysfunction in Washington has literally led to the shutdown of our government. And so how does one speak of God's abundance when there are so many signs around us of scarcity and breakdown? Well, it's like so many things in our lives. When we talk about this, we have to talk about both and. And today, we'll have to figure out how to live within the paradox of God's abundance, even in the midst of evidence to the contrary. But let's start by tuning our ears to the rich and abundant grace of God in this gospel story. So it's a wedding reception, not like our wedding receptions where it's a single afternoon or a single evening, but this was a week-long party. It's when a land where life was harsh and brutal, the wedding was a chance for the whole community to come together to affirm and celebrate life. And so imagine the brewing social disaster when the host family begins to realize that the wine is running low. Now, there are lots of things that can ruin a wedding reception, but number one on the list is if the bar closes early. And so Mary, wanting to spare the family that humiliation, asks Jesus to step in. And in the ensuing course of events, Jesus acts with astonishing abundance. The story is loaded with the symbols of the abundance of God. Those 6 ritual jars of water, and let me tell you, we actually tried to make these out of paper mache one year, and they're about that tall to hold 20 or 30 gallons. But they weren't there for the reception. They were there to hold water for ritual purification. And they were empty. It's as if John is shouting to us, the old order isn't working. The empty rules of rituals and regulation have gotten us nowhere. It's a dead end. And so Jesus steps in and fills those jars, not with water, but with the elixir of ecstasy, the wine of woo-hoo! And he does it with such abundance that it's never going to run dry. And what do you think? Is it a mere coincidence that the story begins on the 3rd day? The 3rd day of what? If you go back to the beginning of John's Gospel to chapter 1, you'll see that every story begins with these words. On the next day. But here, for the first time, John does not say on the next day, he says on the 3rd day. I do not think that's an accident. Because in John's Gospel, everything is building up and pointing to Jesus' death and resurrection. Jesus' time has not yet come, he says in this story, but 3 years later, on a Friday afternoon and a Sunday morning, not only will his time come, but all time will be completed and fulfilled in his resurrection, and it happened on the 3rd day. This first sign of Jesus, this sign of abundance and richness, is already pointing to that great event that will bring us life with God. And that new wine in those old jars. Wine is a rich symbol in the biblical tradition. It's the sign of prosperity and abundance and good times. Wine is the biblical way of saying, happy days are here again, the sky above is blue again, let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here You see, Jesus is going to bring life with God back to the world. Now, all these metaphors of marriages and wedding feasts are a crystal clear message to us. God's intent for us and for the world is life. Life comes to us now in Jesus, who was sent to be the salvation of the world, who died on the cross and rose again to lead us in grace and faithfulness to joyful and abundant life with God forever. Amen? I get that. I believe that. And I believe it down in my bones. And yet the reality is that it becomes a little harder to believe that when we turn on one of the 24-hour news channels. In a world where not everyone has clean water, where, as Evan says, 1 in 9 people around the world is hungry. Why hasn't God's time come yet? In a rich country like ours, there are still children who go to bed hungry, where the lonely are not taken care of, where hundreds of thousands of people come to the end of the day with no home to go back to and no bed to sleep on. And so where is the extravagance of God? And how do we reconcile a story of such potent generosity with such deep and obvious need? And for that matter, what about closer to home? You know, I often have conversations these days with the reality of poverty here in York County, and especially the lack of good and affordable housing for working people. And in those conversations, we often talk about people we know and how the Door County economy is working for a lot of people, but it is not working for everybody. And so, how do we feel? How do we hear this story of abundance when so often around us it feels like scarcity? Let's take that one step closer to home. Here at Shepherd of the Bay, we've got some work to do. Next week at the annual meeting, we will approve a plan for ministry for 2019. For several months now, the council has been praying and having long and deep conversations about what God is calling us to do here in this congregation and about what our ministry is going to look like in the next year. In the wake of a significant deficit at the end of 2018, we trimmed the budget to the bone, and we still don't have pledges to support the new budget for 2019. Yet, I know in my bones that the resources are in this congregation to do this ministry. To me, if there's any valid criticism of our plan for 2019, it's not that it's too big or too bold. It's that it's too small and too conservative. And so how do we hear this story of abundance when it feels like scarcity? Well, there's one phrase in the story that keeps ringing in my ears. It's been ringing in my ears all week. Fill the jars with water. That's what Jesus told the caterers. The caterers could never imagine that by their insignificant act of filling some empty jars with water, they were about to set in motion a story, an action of extraordinary divine abundance. They simply did what they were told. Fill the jars with water. What they did seems so insignificant at the time. What could it possibly accomplish? Fill the jars with water. And then look what happened. In these times of economic and political uncertainty and instability, fill the jars with water. The ministry of the church doesn't stop. In fact, what we have to offer is more important in these times than ever. And in this climate, could it be that people have ears that are more willing to hear? Fill the jars with water. Engage people. Invite them to come to church with you. Invite that neighbor over for coffee and tell them why you like your church. Who knows, but one simple invitation could be what God uses to change someone's life. ministry and your financial involvement in our ministry, could it be that some of you think that what you have to give is not important, that it's insignificant, or that your gift is too small, or that you're not involved enough, or that someone else will carry your weight? Fill the jars with water. You see, God is not all that interested that we understand how God will get God's work done. God is far more interested in our faithfulness, our willingness to answer God's call, to pledge our gifts of time and talent and treasure, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. Somehow, you see, God's work is always connected with our hands. And with the intervention of Jesus, with the silent, unnoticed intervention of Jesus, is exactly what that ancient party needed. At the intervention of Jesus, in the work of our hands, is exactly what's needed for God to get God's work done in the world. And so, dear church, fill the jars with water. Somehow, without our ability to comprehend or our effort, God's abundance will get accomplished.